유튜브 저희 링크가 어떻게 될까요? 유튜브 지금 나가고 있죠?
네, 나가고 있어요.
유튜브 링크는 제가 알아서.
네.
The resolution is very low?
Yeah, very low, very low.
Very low.
You can try seeing it here.
Then I can let me arrange with my stuff in Kuala Lumpur. What about you close the lamp?
No, but like it has to be. We're showing this online as well. So
아니 이게
like,
어디서 나오는 거예요?
이거 이것도 송출되죠?
저희 스피커 소리가 아닌데?
Because of the lighting. Can you try to off the light? See?
저희하고 아까 이거 계속 해주시잖아.
Do you have the sound to connect with the speaker?
그러네.
I think
이게
it's
오디오가 좀
acceptable.
들어와야 되는데. 저기 연결되는 거 아니에요? 저 틀면 좀 오디오
저기 오디오 설정을 바꿔주세요.
오디오 설정이요?
예. 지금 HDMI 끄셔야 돼.
Good morning, everyone, online and offline. Today is the last day of the first Korea-ASEAN International Crime Investigation Capacity Building Program. And today we will be inviting our lecturers from Interpol, Senior Inspector Jung Ki-yu and also Senior Inspector Dawn Park will be telling us about the different operations, international operations that are going on regarding cybercrime. Mr. Jung Ki-yu, if you could please come up to the stage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Hello, everyone. How are you? Are you enjoying the event? Yeah, so I have to say, first of all, I appreciate the organizer, Korean National Police, and Mr. Park Ik-tae, who dedicated to prepare this wonderful event. I really appreciate also for inviting Interpol. And dear audience who are sitting here in the floor, I believe it was not that easy in the middle of uncertainty. So I'm very happy to meet you again. And for those who are connecting via online platform, I'm very happy to welcome you, and I hope this session will be helpful. So greetings again from Interpol. If you don't mind, may I have my presentation slide, please? Okay, my name is Yu Jung-ki. Please, you can call me, my colleagues are calling me by the initial JK. Please feel free to. So I'm working at the Interpol Financial Crimes Unit as a criminal intelligence officer. And as briefly introduced, I am a seconded police officer from Korean National Police. Also, I'm a lawyer admitted at the Korean Bar Association. So today, what I have prepared, I have witnessed for last couple of days. It was really useful and fruitful sessions. I really hope I can add some value. I prepared some perspective from international organization with the title of Global Operation Against Cyber Financial Crimes. So far, we have seen some modus operandi of cyber crimes, but sometimes we could feel difficulties because this is not happening in one single jurisdiction. So I want to introduce how we can proceed international investigation. So can we move on to the next slide, please? So today's agenda, it will be composed, I prepared for part 3. Interpol session, it will be 2 hours afterwards, and I will take in 90 minutes, and I will hand it over to my colleague in CAC, Crime Against Children. Next speaker is connecting from Lyon, so I will hand it over to her around after 90 minutes. And I will do the first part around 45 minutes, and we will have a short break, and I will continue. So we can, for our swift and simple overview, we can start from something big umbrella. From Interpol, what is the Interpol? And let me introduce our team, FCU, and we can narrow down who we are and what we are doing, and some more details. So shall we begin the part 1, please? Next slide. Actually, I have found from the participants who have been already dedicated in NCB, their own national central bureaus, so I don't have to reiterate a lot for introducing Interpol as it were. But for those who are not yet much familiar with this organization or international investigation, let me just briefly introduce again. So crimes are not occurring in a single jurisdiction, which means we are crucial to cooperate together, because suppose we are here in Korea, and suppose a certain crime happened in this territory, in this jurisdiction. But the money, victim money, has flown to Thailand or to Indonesia. Can Korean police investigate in Thailand or, I'm very sorry, I cannot see. Sorry. 알겠습니다. So, I believe Korean police cannot investigate in Indonesia by themselves. Indonesian police support is crucial to have the cooperative investigation. Also, Korean police cannot investigate in Thailand without any support from Thai police. In other jurisdictions, it is all the same. So that's the reason why we gathered here to be a good friend in order to fight against the transnational borderless crimes. So what I'm saying is the threat today is global, and Interpol is trying to provide a global platform. Next, please. As you are very well aware, Interpol is composed of two elements. First is General Secretariat, and second is our 194 member countries. So our General Secretariat, as you are well aware, our headquarters is located in Lyon and effectively supported by 6 regional bureaus and also IGCI, Interpol Global Complex for Innovation in Singapore. So in my case, I'm based in Singapore, while my good colleague from Financial Crimes Unit, Mr. Frankie Chung, who participated in the panel discussion, he's based in Lyon. So my team, Financial Crimes Unit, mainly based in 2 offices in Lyon and Singapore. Next, please. So some simple numbers. Left side budget, right side the number of the staff. We have around 1,000 staffs, and around 70% they are contracted officer, and around 25% they are seconded officer from member countries. So maybe some of you have your seconded officer colleague from your home agency, or may not. Next, please. So these are some ranges that Interpol are providing to member countries. So fugitive investigative support, police data management. Sometimes when we are receiving the case request message from member countries, definitely it will be searchable in order to seek for further cooperation, because that is we can suppose police data management. Suppose the money went to abroad with a certain bank account, but if that bank account is being used again in other crime, we can consider to further the cooperative investigation in other jurisdiction if we can find some interface between 2 cases. So that's some perspective from the analysis and police data management. From my unit, so actually all those capabilities and activities are being done by many business units, and my team, FCU, let me use this acronym for my unit, Financial Crimes Unit, FCU. FCU is also providing, usually my team is very much focused on case coordination among those capabilities. Next, please. And those activities are being supported under 3 programs of Interpol, which is counterterrorism, cybercrime, and organized and emerging crime. FCU is under OEC, Organized and Emerging Crime. So those 3 programs are effectively supported by each directorate, which means under the General Secretariat, we call IPSG, Interpol General Secretariat. There are CT Directorate, Cybercrime Directorate, and OEC Directorate. OEC City in Lyon and City in Singapore. And FCU is under OEC Directorate. Next, please. So let's think about the financial crimes investigation. What will be the most priority? Maybe following the money and stopping the illicit flow of the criminal proceeds. So this is effectively well reflected under our strategy of OEC. So every program has its own strategy, and under OEC strategy, illicit flows of money and asset this is one of the mainstream and strategy of our directorate. So we are pretty much focused on studying how to stop payment or how to freeze the money while they are flying to abroad, because it is all about speed. Think about when money was, the transaction has made to another country, it is very crucial to follow up. So we are trying to, our every effort to follow up, and that's one of the reasons why we are based in both in Lyon and Singapore to overcome time zones. Next, please. Let me proudly introduce my team colleagues, Interpol Financial Crimes Unit under the OEC. So now you may feel we are going to have a certain understanding from top down, from our member countries and to Interpol General Secretariat. And we have 3 programs and 3 directorate, and now we came to the Interpol Financial Crimes Unit. So, as said, our office is based in both Lyon and Singapore. We have 18 officers from 15 jurisdictions, as you can see the flag. Not very small, but not very big, fighting against international financial crimes. Is there any flag? Can you cannot recognizing from the floor, or can you recognize all the flag there? Yes. Can you find any familiar country over there? Maybe Korea? So our main role is bridging multiple jurisdictions to combat transnational financial crimes. And Interpol has 4 official languages: Arabic, French, Spanish, English. So thanks to our diversity, we can converse all 4 of Interpol official language to communicate with all member countries. Next, please. So what keeps FCU busy? So this is always simple and not easy. Something question like what is financial crimes and how can we respond? So actually, I think it is all about money. So we can just simply suppose we can cover all the types of crime because every kinds of crime can be a predicate offense of money laundering when it is becoming used as a criminal procedure. So money laundering, business email compromise, credit card fraud, illegal gambling, drugs, sextortion, money mule. We are indeed covering many types of crime. So no matter how the types of crime, so many business units are our counterpart. It could be cybercrime, it could be anti-fraud, it could be anti-money laundering unit, even drugs or even environmental crimes like a forestry crime. So no matter how, if they are moving the criminal proceeds to other country, that will be our main focus to work on forward. Next, please. So this is our daily business. I think I highlighted in yellow the first one because I think that is the first priority: case coordination and investigative support. Of course, we are doing some internal cooperation or external collaboration with other international organizations like I listed below: ITU, International Telecommunication Union, and of course, dear ASEAN colleagues who are also seated here, and APG, Europol, Egmont Group. Egmont Group is the World Society of FIU, something like FIU's Interpol, we can suppose. And FATF, Financial Action Task Force, actually this is also very important stakeholder who are providing some valuable recommendation to member countries to follow. Also Council of Europe. Actually, yesterday I also joined another conference organized by Council of Europe, so I had no chance to say hello to you yesterday. But I'm very happy to see you again today. also UNODC. So some cooperation with other external stakeholders. It can be policy level or it can be operational level altogether. We can share intelligence in order to cooperate together with a specific crime investigation, or at the same time we can invite each other to speak their own conference. So these are our daily business, but today I want to pretty much focus on the yellow highlighted one, case coordination and investigative support. We are always saying the communication is really important and the cooperation is indeed very important, but in practical level, I have been wondered myself, previously joining Interpol. I understand that is important, of course, but how can we do that? How can we proceed some cooperative investigation together? What will be the best way to overcome the communication? Indeed, there are many red tapes are all around, which can make our efforts lessen or decrease. So I think that is a key to overcome, and I want to share what I have observed so far. Next, please. Case coordination and investigative support. So, Interpol member countries are connected by a certain private secure network, which is called I-24/7. And this communication is being done by our NCB, National Central Bureau. Let me reiterate again, even though you are very well aware of this. So, one of the daily job, we are receiving the case request message via I-24/7 and sending the message, support message to member country by I-24/7. This is a typical process. So sometimes member country are sending to, okay, let's say a certain crime happened in country A, and they are sending. Usually we are thinking about the destination country, which means where to send. For example, when money goes to Singapore, they can easily find some bank account in Singapore, and they determine where to send. So country A to country B, this is a usual communication. But we FCU are always recommending to put in copy with us in order to, if not, there is no way for us to be aware. I have received some questions from member countries before. If they send a message to another country, IPSG or FCU can observe all the messages and try to have a look at to find where to put our support, but cannot. So we always strongly recommend to put in copy with, practically it can be done by just a CC, IPSG, or CC, IPSG, CCC. But the best way is, I think, putting copy with CCC and FCU together, so which can save time. Usually Interpol CCC, when receive the case request, they allocate it to the relevant business unit. And if you put copy FCU together, we can save time. So that is a daily communication with our member countries. Indeed, this is quite a lot. We are receiving more than, in average, more than 300 to 400 case request messages from member country monthly. But I have to say, not all countries are equally experiencing or utilizing this function. That's why some countries, they are very well aware, so always copying FCU to request support. While some countries only sending very prominent cases or not sending anything. So, but definitely I believe in the country also transnational crime is happening. So I want to emphasize, if not copy us, or whether copy or two is fine. The structure as it were is not that important, but the important is let us know so we can study together and find a customized solution. That's what we are doing here. So the second one, case coordination meetings. Sometimes if we find a very urgent, prominent case is happening, definitely we will find a solution, customize the solution together. So we are trying to invite the important stakeholders who can solve the problem together. For example, when the money was sent from Italy to Indonesia, let's say, we can invite NCB Rome and NCB Jakarta and also some other important stakeholders together, and we FCU. So we three stakeholders can sit down on the table together, no matter how online or offline. The best will be offline, like this, in person, but what we have to do in any way in online. So after that, we can make a certain list. What is the requirement or conditions to proceed step by step? Because every country, the conditions can be a bit different. For example, they need a victim's complaint, and of course, banking transaction details should support the case summary to prove what happened before. And sometimes, if enough intelligence was provided, we can also think about the arresting activities for a successful execution. But it is also it depends the conditions, court order needed, or it really depends on the system. So that is the strength of having the case coordination meeting. So the mechanism, as it were, is not that complicated, simple. Think about when your citizen fell in victim and money goes abroad, you will send a case message to that country in copy with FCU. And FCU will coordinate, organize, sending you the meeting link, or sometimes even you can fly to your country, your NCB, to have a direct discussion. And after that, when we meet the condition, we can think about the arresting activities and deportation to the requesting country. This is the drill. This is the simplified way what case coordination can contribute to member countries. Also, we can develop this coordination efforts into Interpol operations level, which means every country, you can think about the planning, investigative planning. You can have a target crime, what to emphasize more in your own country. Interpol operation is a certain concept, a wider concept of investigative planning. We can set a certain specific crime type area. For example, in this operation, we will target cyber-enabled financial crimes. And we are going to invite this jurisdiction, this member. We can set a certain angle. We will focus on Asian region first, and we will expand it to global level. Just for example, every operation has its own character. So I can say those three are the typical case management or coordination done by FCU. But from daily I-24 case communication, we develop into case coordination meeting, and sometimes we develop into Interpol operations. And I will introduce one Interpol operation recently we finished. I think I had a bit slow down, not because of understanding, but because of I feel difficulty. So let me try to slow down, okay? So those are typical types of case coordination. And shall we move on to the next slide, please? Please have a look at first. I think this shows a good example of the showcase of what FCU is doing. Not covering all FCU activities, but efficiently reflecting the prominent activities in our unit operation. Maybe some of you are familiar with the terms or words in the slide. Operation First Light, Operation Hatchie, Project Tory, Operation GAAP Global Airport Action Day. I think we can entertain more time to explain some of them. Operation First Light, this is targeting, as I said, Interpol operation can target a certain specific crime area. So Operation First Light is targeting telecommunication fraud, and Program LEAP that is focusing on some money laundering activities in forestry crime area. Operation GAAD is a Global Airport Action Day, which means if we found a fraudulent card payment, we invited card companies, and we invited airport police, and we invited many jurisdictions in order to target, to have execution in the field from the airport. If we receive a suspicious intelligence from card company, we establish a certain case coordination center in the office, and we're doing that operation for 1 week or 2 weeks. Very much focused on the fraudulent credit card payment, especially on the travel industry. Operation Hatchy, actually, let me elaborate more Operation Hatchy in the part 2, so let me skip at the moment. And the Project Tori, that is a capacity building project, including some virtual asset materials. And Operation Soga, SO for soccer, GA for gambling, so we created the operation codename Soga. We recently finalized Operation Soga. It was aiming for Euro 2020, and that operation is targeting illegal gambling. Lastly, not only operation or project, Global Conference on Criminal Finances and Cryptocurrencies. That is, I recall, in the day 1 afternoon, we had a panel discussion with the decent speakers. So we discussed some money laundering activities based on virtual asset. So that conference is actually established by 3 organizations, Interpol, Europol, and Basel Institute. We shared the same concern around 8 years ago, 2014. So we agreed to study together and respond together. So we are holding the annual conference in turn, which means 2019, Europol did, and last year I organized, and this year, Basel Institute, they are organizing. We are going to circulate the official invitation to all NCBs, Interpol all member countries in this week, and it will happen next month, 7-8 December. It will happen by online conference, so definitely you can simply register to the conference and enjoy the 2 days conference. So this is some overview of our response and FCU team. Before moving on to the part 2, some specific details of the operation, I think I may receive some questions from the floor. Is there any comment or question from the floor, both in person or online? I want to, yes, please.
Morning, Mr. GK.
Good morning.
It's been an honor to meet you to breakfast with Mr. Frank. My name is Juara. I'm from the Interpol of Jakarta. I'm in charge with the general crime. So I have a case that I'm still in my case about. Have you heard about the empty Strovolos vessel who take like illegal oil from Cambodia, and then he went off to a Capri Island close to Singapore and Sumatra. Yeah, he stopped at the Capri, near Capri Island, on August this year, and then I received so many I-24 messages from Cambodia, almost every day until we reached September. one thing that I want to ask you about, why the Interpol approved all the send for the red notice, all the subjects in the vessel, even the janitor who works in the kitchen, in the restroom or housekeeping, they put all the red notice. All that I'm based in my mind, you just give the red notice only for the captain and the first officer. The janitor and all the crew who works in the oil vessel, there is not requirement for a red notice. So until now, all the subjects is arrested in the local police in Capri Island, Rio Island. And then my step until now, I just send an IP message to the Cambodia NCB, but I haven't got a reply now. So until now. So the one that I'm complaining, why the Cambodia didn't want to finish up about all the subject. As an information, all the subject came from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. There's no Cambodian in the vessel. So that's what I want to share with you, Mr. GK, about the Interpol notices.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the second is about Operation Interpol that we have done in Jakarta, including with the general crime and the financial that I've been working with my senior, Mr. Julaman Pasaribu. So it's been an honor to work and to give like a presentation in the public with the local police in Jakarta. So it's been an honor for me. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. GK.
Thank you very much for your comment, dear my friend from Interpol Jakarta, Mr. Joara. So, if I may, I understand the question as a certain responsiveness or communication between different NCBs. So, generally, I think, even from myself, I'm at the FCU, but I also receive a case request message from NCB Seoul, my home agency. And sometimes, frankly speaking, I'm not so sure whether to reveal this or not, but sometimes I'm also curious or wonder because the message can be not always sufficient, but need some supplement, need additional explanation. So indeed, some communication between NCBs all the time, some unexpected misunderstanding can happen, I have observed so far. So how about this? I think rather than we discuss on the floor like this, after finishing the event, we can bring it to the table together, and maybe we can coordinate how to proceed further discussion. So we can have more details about the case, and we can study together in order to find a customized solution for your case. That's what we are doing, because every case has its own character, and maybe we can invite other business units. For example, I recall you mentioned about the red notice. In that case, we can also query to other Interpol colleagues who are working in FIS, Fugitive Investigative Unit, or CCC, Command and Control Center, who are in charge of the notices. So please share your concern with us. Definitely, we are trying to support with our best concerns. Thank you. Hope this could help. Any other comment or question from the floor? If not, we can move on to the part 2. And after that, let's have a small break. Okay, next slide, please. Yes, next, please. Okay. Part 2, FCU's coordination on transnational financial crimes via Interpol operations. In this part, I would like to introduce two typical cases, example, how we coordinated before, and also want to introduce Interpol operation that I mentioned, Operation Hatchie. So, and also after this part, of course, we will have a Q&A session or comment from the floor. Please feel free to share your concern or comment. This is the place prepared for those communication. Next, please. Last couple of years, it was not that easy for everyone. But if you ask me how I can observe some cases, especially from during pandemic, I don't think those are all the crimes have occurred, but I have observed with some priority because we are in the good position to have an overview coming from member countries. So definitely, I think the first priority can be the business email compromise, which is called BEC. In some country, they are calling CEO fraud or impersonation fraud. We can just make various name, but that doesn't matter, whatever we call. So the concept we are approaching, that is important. The typical type of sending a certain fraudulent email to defraud victim and make the fraudulent transaction. That is the essential of that modus operandi. Before moving on to the next fraud types, in BEC, it is very important to cooperate together with the cybercrime colleagues because usually modus operandi can be simplified in two types. Just infiltrate a certain email and sending some fraud word. It can, and so usually I prefer to say authorized transaction and unauthorized transaction. Authorized transaction means defraud victim, and victim is make the payment, making the transaction by their own willing. So that is the authorized transaction. Unauthorized transaction, this is more close to cybercrime types. The criminals are sending a certain malicious ransomware or taking the account or something like that. So whatever we call the BEC, we had better think about those two types of approach. So after that, impersonation fraud. Indeed, for Interpol, many modus operandi were reported who some criminals are pretending to be an Interpol officer. So even though we have no ID card, they are creating their own Interpol ID card. So some typical types of impersonation fraud. And definitely vaccine and testing kit fraud and investment fraud, donation fraud. Let me show you one typical case. Next, please. Next slide, please. So this is so-called BEC fraud. Not only for case coordination, Interpol is also sharing a certain public awareness by holding this kinds of campaign, which is called BEC Careful. Doesn't it looks like a fancy name? BEC Careful, be careful. So we discussed a lot how to name this. So it includes some hacking, social engineering fraud, money laundering, cyber aspect, and financial aspect all together. Let's move on. Next slide, please. Okay, first case. It happened, I recall, last year amidst widespread lockdown in European side. The German state government wanted to procure personal protection equipment like mask, ventilator, COVID-19 personal protection. So they approached a certain legitimate company in Spain. But the cloned website introduced them to an Irish dealer. So they had a certain contract with, unwilling contract with Irish dealer. And the Irish dealer introduced them to meet at the Amsterdam in Netherlands, and had a certain appointment, meet in a day, and will procure a lot of equipment, including mask. So in the middle of pandemic, or in the early last year, some country, it was really difficult to get a mask at the time. So some government, they are trying to buy a huge amount of mask. But this is typical non-delivery scam. But in Netherlands, nobody showed up, even though the German government paid a lot. So after receiving this intelligence, Interpol Financial Crimes Unit coordinated with those all related NCBs and tried and started to money chase, trying to follow up the transactions, and finally, with the support from the relevant NCBs and support from Europol as well, this is some good example how to chase the money flow. And I recall finally we arrested the 3 more suspects in Nigeria. So this can be some first typical case of multiple jurisdiction cooperation. Let me introduce another case. Next slide, please. This is I'd like to emphasize in this class. So actually, thanks to NCB Jakarta colleagues, it was a typical very successful case. The victim company, it was in Italy. And the modus operandi was just very similar, like just before I mentioned. The victim company in Italia, they ordered the COVID-19 safety equipment like a mask and ventilator from the legitimate company in China. But the criminals approached it and introduced a fraudulent bank account in Indonesia. So Italian company made a 3 transaction into Indonesia. It was more than 3 million euro at the time. We just received that intelligence and approached to ask support from NCB Jakarta. And really, thanks to Indonesian authorities, we could stop the money just within several hours. So this is a really good example how we can play an important role in a very strict timeline. We have to take a look who, because every country, the different structure and different authority, and when it comes to money goes abroad, we have to think about who has the authority, are they have any legislation for freezing the account, what is the condition, court order needed or police request is sufficient. So in this case, I think Indonesian authorities' support was quite swift, so we could freeze the money first. Every time I'm trying to emphasize the importance of the first action by freezing the account, and after that, we can proceed the official and normal investigation, which will be the most priority in the financial crimes investigation. So I wanted to share this case example for your information as well. Next slide, please. So from now on, let me introduce one of the typical Interpol operation named Hatchie. I could find also Operation Hatchie point of contact in this room. So, but most of you, I think, are not very familiar with this operation. So let me just reiterate and replicate. Hatchie is a mythological animal in Eastern Asia culture, which is. Have you seen this sculpture in Korea before? Maybe we can see in Seoul today or tomorrow. In Korean palace, every important place we can see the sculpture of Hatchie. The name of the animal, legendary animal, he is Hatchie, means yes, that's right. In front of the palace, which means this animal means protecting citizens from fire and disaster. So I found it's a good meaning to name for code name for Interpol operation. So this is HACHI. This operation mounted under the project CFIN, Cyber-Enabled Financial Crimes, which was funded by Republic of Korea. And this is a 3-year cycle project. So we already have finished 2 cycles of this operation very recently. And actually, we are going to publish a press release tonight. So maybe you can have a glance how this operation has happened via Interpol website. And we are aiming to do this operation again next year, and I really hope we can have a in-person meeting for pre-operational meeting or a conclusion meeting for this operation 3, which means we had done Operation HACHI first, and we finalized Operation HACHI second, and we will do this again next year, Operation HACHI 3. Okay, let me share some more details about the operation. Next, please. So this is a global scope operation. Started from Asia, we invited 10 jurisdictions in Asia, including most of your country. And in HACHI 2, we expanded into European and also invited American and African region. So 22 jurisdictions joined the second wave of the operation. So this picture shows taken from the first wave. The red dot is joining country from the Asian region, but the blue dot means some related. We could find some relevancy from other countries, even though we invited Asian countries only, which means no matter how the joining participating countries, the cases, as it were, we could find the relevancy from another jurisdictions as well, which means we have to expand our cooperation together with other member countries as well. Next, please. This operation has targeted those 5 types of crimes: voice phishing, romance scam, online sextortion, investment fraud, and money laundering associated with illegal gambling. Next, please. So this is key date for HACHI second. Interpol operation can be a 2 weeks operation or 1 week operation, like Operation GAAD I mentioned before. But in this operation, we set a certain angle for a longer period in order to maximize the deliverables of the operation. So usually for 2 months or 3 months. So we said, firstly, we are trying to foster to exchange prominent intelligence, and after that we can have a certain execution period in order to have some arresting activities or deportation as well. And also we emphasize to generate Interpol notices in the framework of this operation. For example, I found a very interesting and great photo of the day 1. We did a Squid Game event here, but very timely. Of course, you are very well aware Interpol purple notices, sharing the modus operandi of the new crimes. Very timely, we have received a PN purple notice request from Colombia, who are also joining countries in Operation HACHI. They have published the purple notice about the Squid Game modus operandi. So criminals are maximizing the opportunity and sending the message to phone. Do you want to join the Squid Game? Press. So actually, the modus operandi, as it were, is quite similar. But the luring people, the way how to lure people, this is something new in line with trend. So maybe even I'm very curious to push the button. Yes, I want to join. So it was the timeline, just finished. Last week we had a conclusion meeting together with the point of contact or NCB colleagues from joining countries. Next, please. So it was the operational goals. Let's think about that. No matter how we have Interpol operation or not, we are keep communicating by I-24/7, or we can still keep doing the Interpol cooperative investigation. But why? The reason why we are having this kind of Interpol operation, I have thought about this myself, because in order to convince myself why I am doing this. So I tried to recall my home agency experience. I worked as an investigator, but at the same time, I also have some experience in KMP headquarters and did some planning for the investigative planning. So to me, I understood myself, okay, this is a certain investigative planning for a specific types of crime. So even though we can exchange our intelligence, or we can keep doing our daily jobs by I-24/7 message, at the same time, we can develop our capabilities by having a certain investigative planning. So we can share our concern, what is the prominent cases and what types of crime we have to put our efforts more. So that's the one of the main reason why we did this operation, targeting cyber-enabled 5 types of crimes. So during the operational period, we set a certain role, what should be done by Interpol and what should be done by member countries. Next slide, please. Okay, firstly, let's think about the cyber-enabled financial crimes as it were. What came across you? Personally, to me, it's quite complexity, very complicated, because traditionally, there could be a cybercrime unit, there could be a financial crime unit, or a fraud unit, anti-money laundering unit. Many types of investigation team can exist in diverse countries. So from the first step, I had a deep consideration. Who will be the counterpart? To whom we have to send the invitation to join in this operation? Because in conclusion, we decided to invite everyone, because every country, the 5 target crimes can be investigated by cybercrime unit, or can be investigated by financial crime unit. But no matter, I think as we discussed the definition as it were, it does not matter much, or who are responding from that jurisdiction. I think that is not very much important, but the important thing is how we can respond to those transnational crimes. So we had a certain discussion. We had a better invite, expand this point of contact to variety of business units in order to maximize the opportunity of countering target crimes. So that is the character of the cyber-enabled financial crimes we have thought. Next slide, please. So after that, who will be the important player? This is some very practically, we have to think about that. Who will we are working together? So from Interpol, we communicated with the CCC and also Communication Office. Of course, FCU will be the main office. And from member countries, we invited cybercrime, fraud, organized crime, and anti-money laundering as well. For example, in Thailand, we also invited anti-money laundering office, AMLO, and in the Philippines, we also invited the central bank anti-money laundering. So from Indonesia, also PPATK joined as a point of contact, which is much appreciated. So this is the important criteria when targeting cyber-enabled financial crimes, expanding our counterpart into other various units. Now we are heading for around, we already used the 45 minutes, but let me finalize the part 2, because part 3 will be a bit small part. So I propose to have a break time a bit later, 5 or 10 minutes later. So next slide, please. So under the framework of Interpol Operation Hatchie, we set an Interpol role first. We established OCU, Operation Coordination Unit. So under the FCU, we have 18 colleagues, but we efficiently invited some other criminal intelligence officers to help this operation together and respond to the target crimes. So next slide, please. And this is important part. We replicated the same explanation to participating member countries, what they have to do. Especially and practically, I emphasized the way how sending the case request message, because many times, including myself, before joining Interpol, I was the one who are complaining about the responsiveness, why, even though we sent a message, why we cannot receive. And I could find one of the reasons can be when sending the case request message, it is very important to include enough information. So we have to let's think about, we are the recipient receiving the case support message. But when we find this is not very much information, or for example, usually it have to include case summary, what happened, and what are the factors which is supporting the case, which means at least banking transaction details. If money goes abroad, the banking transaction details should be attached in the case request message, and had better specify what they want. We want you to identify the suspect, or we need additional information about the account holder, whether he or she is located in your territory. So those types of practical information we were sharing with the participating point of contact, especially how to send a case request message, what important factors or criteria should be included. Because think of yourself, you are receiving the message. In order to take the next step, we have to clarify what is the request. So that should be the priority, I think. So that is the member country's role for the case coordination, and also for the publishing notices, we requested to active participation from member countries. Next, please. These are some OCU's observation during the operation period. Indeed, we had plenty of case meetings with participating countries. In Operation Hatchet 2, 22 jurisdictions joined, and each jurisdiction we had a case meeting at least one time or 3 times, more than 3 times. If we have a prominent case, we were trying to actively approach to coordinate the case together. So, by this occasion, I really want to share this information. Suppose you have a case to discuss, please feel free to approach us. Definitely we will organize the case meetings. Next, please. This is one of the examples. We recall the case from Italy to Indonesia. This is what we have done. FCU prepared those kinds of slides to share the same concern, to inviting Indonesia, inviting Italy, and joining by ourselves. And I prepared some chronology of the event, what happened by the timeline, and we are explaining first in order to share the same concern and ask the Italian colleagues what they want, and ask Indonesian colleagues what will be the required condition. Of course, it is better to send a certain agenda or the concerns of the criteria for them to prepare what should be the critical criteria. So I found indeed it works, and this can be a good example of following how to have the case coordination meeting. Next slide, please. So this is some quantitative result of the operation Hatchet first. Important criteria, I think, is the bank account frozen and the number of the money intercepted. Next, please. And after that, we had a Hatchet 2. Also, we are pretty much focused on the illegal transfer and stopping the payment. And other than that, I think it is also good to mention having the arresting activities together, or try to consider how we can proceed those arresting activities. It should be finalized with the deportation, but it really depends on each jurisdiction's legislation and procedure. Next, please. After that, all those Interpol operations usually finalizing with the press release from Interpol General Secretariat. And this is the Hatchet first Interpol press release. And tonight, it's quite meaningful for me today. I'm having the opportunity to meet you in this morning. And in this evening, I'm expecting publishing the press release about the Operation Hatchet second. Next, please. I think we can stop for a moment and we can have some break. And how about continuing from the second half? Thank you very much. Okay, dear colleagues, if I may continue the second half, I was informed I can utilize around 25 minutes from now on, so let me swiftly proceed to the next presentation. The second half, I would like to emphasize two key points. First, Interpol's Stop Payment Protocol. In the first part, we have seen some case examples how we have stopped the illicit flow of money. So in the second half, I will introduce Interpol's protocol, how to stop the payment. And the second point, I learned during the day one panel discussion, we have discussed about the virtual asset-based money laundering. I have included some slides of the virtual asset cryptocurrency cases, so maybe I can add some value in addition to the first day's panel discussion. So first, let me start from the protocol, which is called ARRP, Anti-Money Laundering Rapid Response Protocol. A bit complicated, but you can have a look at upper part, the criminal money flying abroad from jurisdiction A to jurisdiction B, from bank to bank. And the down row, you can see some efforts from police ourselves, how to stop the money, following the money. So from jurisdiction A police, they can send a case request message from NCB A to NCB B, and they can copy FCU, so we could be aware from our side. So this is something typical case coordination message while they are containing the specified request of please stop the payment. And when jurisdiction B police receive that message, they will have to consider the procedure, the way how to stop the criminal money in the jurisdiction B. So this is a simple mechanism how to stop the payment. Next slide, please. So while we have a simple mechanism of this, in reality, as you may easily expect, it's not that easy because quite complicated because of the diverse many countries. Even suppose yourself, if you receive a request for stopping the money, stopping the criminal proceeds, how your jurisdiction can manage that request. What is the similar legislation in your own country to stop the money, to freeze the account? Do you need your own criminal court order, or Interpol request or other countries' request would be sufficient? Can it be made by your own hand? The police has the authority to asking the freezing the account, or FIU or any other authority, prosecutor's office has the power to freeze the account. We have to think about those criteria, who has the authority, and the process, how can it be done? And indeed, time zone difference and uncertain about stop payment mechanism, no previous collaboration, no point of contact, many reasons which can make us not to cooperate. However, those are the crucial points we have to cooperate together, and those challenges can be overcome by our more concrete collaboration, I believe. Next slide, please. So this is, we are suggesting, we have announced this during the Operation Hatch conclusion meeting last week. So we will launch this as a pilot phase next year, and we are aiming to officially announce the launch of the Interpol official stop payment mechanism next year, Operation Hatch 3 conclusion meeting. In the meantime, our efforts for stopping payment will be continued, which is called ARRP. So in the middle of the slide, you can see the FCU have a 2 o'clock. So we will try to overcome the time zones, and having some accumulated successful cases, we are trying to keep our efforts to stopping the payment. Before proceeding to the next slide, I have received a question from online audience. Let me simply answer this first. And the question, is it FCU's responsibility to respond to all CC mails in exchange for cooperation? And how long does it take to get a response? First of all, thank you very much, dear audience who are connecting from online. Let me briefly answer this. Actually, this is all made by human, which means criminal intelligence officers, and we have a certain discretion or set a certain priority how to respond to member countries' case request, which means there is no such obligation, but we feel that obligation we have to respond, but not usually cannot responding to all the correspondences, but what we think the priority is how freshy the transaction has made. Suppose the money has sent to abroad just 5 days ago or 2 weeks ago, definitely, apparently, much higher possibilities of stopping the payment. So in that case, we are trying to approach the related jurisdiction to find a customized solution in that case. Other than that, of course, in reality, we will have to prioritize respond to the prominent case. I hope this could be an answer. And of course, if you think you need a response from FCU, please do not hesitate to send us additional email. You need a response from us, or you want to have a case coordination meeting with FCU in order to discuss together or study together how to proceed the next step of cooperative investigation. Definitely, we are also seconded from our member countries, and we are working here in the FCU to help and support our member countries' investigation. I hope this could be an answer for the question from the online platform, and please feel free to share your concerns or question more. Let me get back to the ARRP again. Next slide, please. So we have seen the concept of ARRP and some obstacles of stop payment mechanism, and this shows a certain structure of how to send. So from victim's jurisdiction, they send to the beneficiary bank account jurisdiction, and usually copy Interpol response. So, but we have to consider this ARRP will focus freezing only. This is very different concept: freezing, seizuring, and asset recovery. Of course, in order to proceed to asset recovery, it is very important to freeze the account timely, and this protocol will more focus on the first step of freezing the money. Okay, next please. Let me share one ARRP success example. It happened last summer, 13 July. FCU team received a request from NCB Seoul. The money has sent to 2 NCBs, NCB Manchester and another country. So right after we received the message, we have found the transaction just happened 10 days ago, which means still we have the possibilities of stopping the payment. So we directly approached to NCB Manchester and also NFIB, National Fraud Intelligence Bureau in City of London. So NFIB sent a message to, in the UK, NFIB sent an alert to banks, and usually banks accept more than 90% when UK authorities request that. So just in a day, we could successfully freeze the bank account first, and after that, The reason why we are focusing on the first step of freezing, because after that, it really depends on each country's procedure for the total recovery. Some country or some banks, they are requiring indemnification, which means the sending bank is guaranteed about the returning funds by SWIFT channel. So it really depends on that. After first step of freezing account, we could successfully find the full recovery of the amount after 2 months after full procedure. So this is an ARRP. This is how we can stop the money when money goes abroad. So please, when you are going back to your home country, share this with your colleagues. And please keep in mind, when your citizen fell victim, and when your country's money goes abroad, let's do this together, let's practice together, and let's accumulate some successful cases more and more. Next, please. Some toolkit, list of ARRP, how we can stop money. Very practical. When we receive those kinds of requests, we are considering all those toolkit, and when we are advising to member countries, we are usually recommending to use every bullet possible. It is because from recipient perspective, the conditions, requiring conditions could be very different by countries. The yellow box, this is about the bank-to-bank channel, like SWIFT channel. And the blue box is something traditional communication via Interpol or other international bodies or FIU network. And the green one, the dedicated anti-money laundering network like ARIN Europe or CARIN Europe or ARIN in Asia. And the next one, some dedicated asset recovery office. For example, ADCC, Anti-Deception Center Coordination Center in Hong Kong, or ASC Anti-Scam Center in Singapore. I think this is a very important, good example to establish and create such dedicated anti-money laundering unit in your own home agency. And the last one, purple, is the judicial powers unit. So those are some list of the toolkit when we are considering how to stop the illicit flow of money. Next, please. So some key takeaway: asset tracing, money interception, and asset recovery a top priority. It is all about money, and it is all about speed. Personally, I think this is the most important part of the presentation today. No matter how we introduce our organization or many information, actually already those are OSINT, already open source information. We can easily find and search from website. However, those kinds of experience we have accumulated so far, I hope this will be really helpful for you when you are, after all, we will all go back to our home country and agencies. And if you can take only this and can adjust further in your own cases, I think definitely it will be helpful. So we need a multi-pronged approach, and let's use and maximize Interpol's capabilities on global operations. Thank you, and next slide, please. Actually, I'm finishing the part 2. Is there any question from the floor or online so far? If not, I think I can swiftly move on to the last part. So, any question? Sorry? No? Okay. So, lastly, let me introduce the latest trends in money laundering, which is facilitated by virtual asset. We have discussed this in day 1 panel discussion, and we could hear valuable opinions from the panels. So let me swiftly, or some skip, but let me reinforce some important criteria. Next, please. What if all transactions happen via virtual assets? VA for virtual assets, and VASP for virtual asset service providers, which means exchange for cryptocurrency. And now I'm trying to following the FATF terms. Next, please. I think you can recall the conference that I mentioned during the part 1, which is based on the tri-party expert group within Interpol, Europol, Basel Institute and Governance. Next, please. we created that working group in order to respond to those specific crimes which is facilitated by virtual assets. And those are some concerns arising from the floor at the last year's conference. So I could get an explicit hint of what people are wanting in those types of crimes. Next, please. So in my world, there are two types of transaction. First, traditionally with bank account number and without bank account number, which means crypto wallet. Next, please. This is a simple showcase of the money flow, which was, in this case, Ripple was used. But isn't it something like a fiat money flow, which we are more familiar? So I want to propose the first step can be a drawing of money flow. Actually, drawing a money flow, as it were, it is not a big deal because several functions or programs are already developed, so we can choose in any types of tracing tools. And this is also one of the characteristics of the cryptocurrencies, showing the apparent money flow of transactions. While more than that, it is more importantly, it is very difficult to identify the account holder. I mean, compared to traditional fiat money, we can know the bank account holder by asking to bank. But in this world of virtual asset, it's not that easy to identify the account, the wallet holder. So that's the point we can start from the investigation virtual asset related. Next, please. So indeed, I could observe more and more cases are coming to FCU, the money laundering, which is facilitated by virtual asset, which means criminals are sending their criminal money not only by banking transactions, but by virtual asset. Next, please. Last year, when public health issue has arisen, the right side logo, I took it from the official website, while left side, the criminals are offering some wallet addresses even. So it's not new. The future is already here. Next, please. So this is one case example that how we coordinate the virtual asset facilitated money laundering. The mechanism, as it were, is quite similar to the fiat money. The only difference is we have to query further. So this case that happened from country A to country B. Country 1 is Korea, country 2 is Liechtenstein. I found a certain case message from NCB Seoul, and in that case, virtual asset was used for by means of criminal. The amount of money is not that big, but this is a good case example to show how we can coordinate virtual asset related crimes. So usually we can replicate the same procedure. However, we can add some more question to country 2. Are you following the FATF recommendations, or do you recall FATF recommendation we have discussed in the day 1? In the Financial Action Task Force recommendation, they have a certain guidance for member countries to follow and recommend to prepare a certain regulation in order to prosecute, because no law, no prosecution in modern democratic society. So we are asking some more queries. Are you following the FATF recommendations? And is this VASP company is existing in your jurisdiction? And under what condition? That company has any KYC policy, know your customer, which means how can we obtain the customer's information from that VASP? And what is the requirement condition to obtain those customers' information from that VASP? So those are some typical questions when we are coordinating this kind of cases. Country 2 responded to country 1 in copy with FCU by providing some information about VASP. Now communication has activated between relevant NCBs. Next case, please. Okay, I understand I can use less than 5 minutes, so let me swiftly finalize with this case. So this is a really good example, I think, very the investigators were very capable to get enough information from VASP companies. The case was requested from country A, country 1. Country 1 is Korea, country 2 Nigeria, country 3 China. The suspect impersonated a manager of Telegram group chat, and the victim had subscribed and sent a URL link, a sort of a kinds of investment fraud. Click the link and join a certain group. So after that, the suspect stole the victim's private key and take those 3 types of cryptocurrency into his own account. So what FCU responded in this case is actually the investigator. We have received very enough information from the investigator and the sending country because they already analyzed with a specific tool in this case and successfully get an information about the wallet account holder from VASP companies by reaching directly out to VASP. So maybe it depends on each country. If you have any chance to get in touch with those VASP countries, I highly recommend to accumulate more contact to different VASP virtual asset service provider exchanges, because we are trying to continue the anti-money laundering compliance efforts even into VASP. So far, we have a lot of different regulations on banks or financial institute for the purpose of anti-money laundering, KYC, CDD, due diligence customer, or SDR, suspicious transaction report, CTR, many times of that. However, in the industry of virtual asset field, we have less regulation on that. So you can consider how to regulate to invite them into the world of justice, maybe. So in this case, actually, we have provided enough information from the requesting country, so the coordination can be happened in a very traditional way. So we approach to country 2 and country 3 in order to find the possibilities of arresting actions. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I will have to finalize very soon, but in the meantime, I received a question from the online platform. First, which legal basis for valuing encryption in the process of investigating money laundering cases in Korea? I understand this question, how Korea developed our own regulation against virtual asset money laundering, if my understanding is correct. So every discussion should logically start from FATF recommendation, because in this world we cannot regulate with only one single law. Every jurisdiction has their own law. So that's why we call recommendation, not a regulation from FATF. But it's quite strong enough. Many countries are following the FATF regulation, and also in Korea last year, they renovated a specific regulation for specific intelligence in finance. So in Korea, they required virtual asset service providers to obtain a certain customer's information, which should be the first step of identifying the suspect, identifying the customer. So in Korea, that could be the legal basis, which means following the FATF recommendation, creating a relevant regulation in Korea. I hope this could be an answer for first question 1. And the second question, how does Korean law enforcement agencies communicate with cryptocurrency exchange, VASP I mean, to collect information to investigate money laundering cases? I would answer, this is very important for law enforcement, each law enforcement agency. Many virtual asset service providers are sprung up these days, and I have observed many of them are trying to following the FATF recommendations, and their response has increased against law enforcement. So I strongly recommend to approach them. They have their own email address to receive the request from law enforcement and have a casual meeting or a formal meeting in order to discuss and develop the discussion and ask them what is the requirement for you to receive a request from law enforcement, and they will answer your question, what on condition they can support for stopping the virtual asset payment. Same with the bank, same with the current financial institute. So you can make a certain list to approach them and have a strategical meeting together with each virtual asset service providers. I think this could be helpful, the question from the online platform. Now I will have to introduce another speaker from another unit. So let me just finalize with the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the three-dimensional approach to investigate virtual asset crimes, which was introduced during the last year's conference. Very simply, because this is already complicated when you're talking about cryptocurrency, we are trying to avoid very complicated discussions. So I simplified in tools and rules operations. Tools to trace. Usually we need the support from private sectors, making tools for tracing companies, and rules. We discussed about the FATF and how to regulate those. So from country, they have to think about how to obtain the tools, having the contract with those providers, and how to prepare rules, have to prepare their own rules, and based on tools and rules, how to have more investigation. That is the part of the operation. So those are three-dimensional approach to investigate virtual asset crimes we have recommended so far. So, okay, I had better conclude my presentation, and thank you for your attention. Now I will hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
I was muted. Hello everyone, do you hear me loud and clear? Yes. I think you are hearing me. Yes, okay, great. It's very nice to meet you all, managers on site, attendees on the Zoom. And it was an amazing presentation, my colleague JK. I'm really glad to have this chance to meet you all. So my name is Dawn Park, working for the Crimes Against Children Unit in the Interpol. I normally sit in the IGCI in Singapore, but I'm in the middle of my mission to the IPSG in France. So that means it's 3 in the morning here. So please bear with me if I get a little clumsy today. Actually, I asked the organizer to squeeze me in this program at last minute because I thought this could be a great opportunity to present the CAP team to the ASEAN member countries and maybe seek further involvement of Asian countries in the area of online child sexual exploitation. So, but I know that this is the last session, and after this, you're gonna have lunch, and maybe you are getting hungry by now. So I'll try to keep my presentation short and sweet. So now I will share the screen. But please be noted that this is not to be shared, and I hope this is not being recorded. Do you see the presentation slides? Yes, okay. Yeah, so as my colleague previously mentioned about the Interpol itself, I will skip that part and jump into my team's activities. And since the theme of the program is cyber financial crimes, I will talk about the financial aspects of online child sexual exploitation. And at the end, I will briefly talk about the BASE Asia project. And if you have questions, you can, those who are attending online can leave the questions in the chat room, and managers on site can directly ask to me at the end of my presentations. Actually, before diving into my presentation, I'd like to know how many of you are from specialized unit for the child sexual abuse. So could you give me maybe a thumb or raise your hand? Nobody? Nobody really? Okay, I was hoping there will be many officers from the specialized unit, but it turns out not. Anyway, without further ado, I will start with the overview of the Crimes Against Children unit. Okay, so I will call the Crimes Against Children unit CAPTIM in short from now on. So CAPTIM falls under the Vulnerable Countries, which is one of the 3 sub-directorates under Organized and Emerging Crime Directorate, the same as JK's directorate. We have a lot of officers in the IPSG in Lyon, and we have 4 officers based in the IGCI Singapore, covering Asia region. Our mission is to identify victims of child sexual abuse around the world. We are making our best efforts to achieve this goal by encouraging cooperation and facilitating information flow between law enforcement agencies all over the world. And we also provide tools to assist the specialized units and capacity building programs. So generally, my team services include victim identification, online investigations, coordinating international operations, and managing the ICSA database, which I will elaborate later. And we are also responsible for updating the Interpol Green Notice to ensure that member countries start using it to alert other countries about traveling child sex offenders. We also conduct online monitoring on both ClearNet and DarkNet. And we can also provide member countries with trainings, such as creation of a national specialized unit, ICSA training, open source investigations, and etc. You can consult with my team about the possibility of a training that suits your need. So one of our work is to manage the ICSA database. The ICSA database is one of the 19 databases the Interpol has. So the full name is International Child Sexual Exploitation Database, but we often call it ICSA in short. So ICSA is a victim-centric image and video database launched in 2009. Now, currently, version 4.2 is being used, and we are also developing a new version. So the ICSA enables certified users to upload and investigate new material by comparing them with existing material seized worldwide and stored in the database. So I would say the ICSA database is more than just a database because it's equipped with a tool that automatically extracts the digital information from images and videos and check similarity with the existing data. And it's also equipped with various other functions that are designed to assist the investigators. So in a nutshell, it aims to reduce duplication of investigative work by enhancing intelligence and data sharing. So let's say you seize the tons of child sexual abuse material from the offender's computer or hard drive or whatever. Then you can upload this material to ICSA, then the system will triage known material, and you can check if the victim or offender is identified already by other law enforcement agencies. And you can also check if there's other material depicting the same victim, officer, or the background. Something we should keep in mind is that the child abuse videos and images are actually recorded crime scene. So it has a lot of evidence there, including digital clues and visual and auditory clues, such as the language spoken in the video, and it can be also some items on the background like calendar and beer can, like that. Analyzing these clues, we can narrow down the location of abuse, and at the end of the day, to identify the child victims. So as of November 8th, more than 27,000 victims have been identified in this ICSA system, and more than 12,000 offenders have been identified in ICSA. When it comes to Asia and Pacific region, the number of victims, the green line in this chart, have increased every year, and the number of offenders, identified offenders, the blue line in this chart, also increased every year. And over the past 2 years, you can see it has increased a lot. But I'd like to say there's still tons of material in ICSA depicting the Asian victims and possibly located in the Asia. So ICSA is not open to every user of I-24/7 because it needs to be under control due to its sensitive nature, as you can imagine. So there are some requirements that need to be fulfilled by the member country to get the access to it. So only specialized investigators working regularly with child sexual abuse cases should be trained first and then get an access. Currently, we have 67 countries connected to ICSA, and if we count Peru, who really recently joined this system, and Asia particularly, there's Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam. But some of them are not that active actually. So maybe some of you are interested in joining the ICSA, so I will briefly explain the process of connection. So first, so if a member country has the willingness and capability to properly use the ICSA, they are welcome to join, of course. So they can, firstly, they have to submit the country status questionnaire, which is about police organization, national legislation, and technical environment. Once this is done, the National Security Officer, the NSO, in member country has to extend the I-24/7 network, the Interpol Secure Network, from the NCB to the specialized unit, and open user accounts for them at INSIST. So after this, the captain will conduct a speed test to see if the internet is fast and stable enough to use the ICSA. Once it's done, then the member country will submit the list of ICSA users, and then these users need to be trained by, these ICSA trainings are hosted by CAC team. So after this, they will be granted the access. I will move on to IWOL and baseline. IWOL stands for the Interpol Worst of List. Basically, it's a text file of domains displaying the child abuse material on World Wide Web, the ClearNet. So it's available on the NCB dashboard, and NCBs can share this list with the internet service providers in their country. So that the internet service providers can maybe put this list to their filter system, and that will result in redirecting internet traffic away from its original destination, and so making the subscribers cannot access to the CSAM. The criteria for IWOL is limited because it should be illegal in any jurisdictions. That is to say, it should be depicting a real child looking less than 13, depicting sexual abuse or focusing on genitalia and anal part of the child. This list is updated every day by my team. And the baseline is the hash set of the most serious CSAM in ICSA. The criteria for this is the same as IWOL, restricted likewise, but the candidate material should receive 3 votes from the ICSA users and then confirmed by the CAC team to be included in the baseline list. So this is, so we are working on the baseline agreement now because we need to reflect the fast changing reality. And once it's done, it will be shared with industry partners so that they can block circulation of this system. There's also ICCAM. It's it's an initiative by InHope, the NGO, and it enables the secure exchange of CSAM between each hotlines in different countries with the aim of quick removal from the internet. So among them, material categorized as illegal will be shipped to Interpol through ICCAM portal. So commonly, the CSAM are submitted to ICSA by the national specialized investigators after they receive this material from each agency in their jurisdiction. But when it comes to ICCAM, the data is submitted to the Interpol server where my team members can have access directly. So it means it can remove some delaying factors and reflect the distributed material. Okay, so I will move on to the financial aspects of online child sexual exploitation. In a nutshell, online child sexual exploitation has financial types, like it can be traded by cash and more commonly by electronic money transfer systems or cryptocurrencies as an attempt to avoid the LEA's trace. And in this case, we can say that these traders are financially motivated. So these financially motivated offenders, in another way, they can also advertise commercials on the CSAM sites. And there's another form, like traveling child sex offenders, who are engaged in child prostitution, commonly in South Asian countries. And finally, there's the online live streaming of CSAM. I think you are already familiar with this kind of crime, but so in a nutshell, the traffickers who are mostly located in the same country with victims, they sell the CSAM using various kinds of platforms, online platforms, to the consumers in other countries. So they make profits by selling this content, illegal content. So there's a good example of online live streaming case. So it was carried out by the CAP team as a joint operation. It started with a financial entity. I cannot reveal the name of the company, but this company committed to removing criminal activities from their platform. So they proactively searched for suspicious money transactions believed to be associated with online streaming of child sexual abuse based on payment commands, IP locations, and payment patterns, and etc. The dataset was based on arrested facilitators in the Philippines over 2 years. So they found customer accounts from 31 countries and identified potential facilitators in the Philippines. So the CAP team in the Interpol took this data to the Philippines. The IJM, the International Justice Mission, organized an investigative workshop in partnership with many LEAs, including the PNP, the Philippine National Police. And in this investigative workshop, they could conduct 5 operations, which led to arrest of 4 offenders and rescue of 14 victims. So this is a news article about one of the arrests in the Philippines. But I'd like to say the Philippines is not the only country where online live streaming is happening. This phenomenon has been emerging in many Asian countries, actually, where poverty exists and where that national legislation is not sufficient to properly prosecute and punish the offenders of this kind of crime, and where law enforcement agencies are under-resourced. And as we can see in this case, I'd like to put emphasis on the fact that the global collaboration and cooperation is very important to arrest OCSE offenders. Another case example could be Operation World Outlet. It was about series of material in ICSA, and specialized officers from different countries made a joint effort to put together intelligence. And it led to a referral sent to Belarus about 3 main subjects and 13 child victims. There was a main suspect who physically abused victims with his accomplice, and also there were offenders from other countries traveled to Belarus to conduct to abuse these children. So CAT team sent officers on site to provide some assistance, including analyzing Bitcoin transactions, because the main suspect used TorChat, one of the popular messenger services in darknet, to trade CSAM, which included his Bitcoin wallet address. So as you can see, he's talking about how they can buy this child abuse material, and his Bitcoin account is like that. So CAT team here helped trace this address. Moving on, so I talked about 2 case examples, but earlier I talked about the IO websites created on the ClearNet, and some of them are concealing their CSAM behind the front web pages. That means if you are not coming from their partner services, they will just show legal, legitimate material, and this can sometimes include sponsored links generating revenues. But CSAM parts of the websites are also used to earn money in several ways. First, when a visitor clicks on a picture to watch CSAM, they will quite often get chain redirected to the various web pages until they get to an advertisement. And the advertisement companies is usually unaware that the clicks they bought are coming from a CSAM website. As seen in this screenshot, at the right bottom, there's a JavaScript pop-up, and this is generating revenues for the webmaster. Another way to make money is that the CSAM files are usually only available to accounts. So when the visitor wants to view the CSAM, they have to buy a premium account to download the CSAM archive, and money usually goes to the webmaster through an associated program. Sometimes this is a fraud. The archive could be empty and therefore cannot be taken down for being illegal. If you take a look at the left screenshot here, all the pictures clearly suggest that child abuse material is being sold, but this is not actually displaying anything really illegal. Therefore, those websites cannot be taken down most of the time. And let's say when someone clicks on the top right picture here, it leads to a zip archive on wdupload.com in the right photo. In this archive, the link is only available to the premium users, as you can see here. Finally, it's also common to sell CSAM archives using Bitcoin wallets. As you can see in the left screenshot, this website displays various archives that are behind paywalls. And when you want to access an archive, you are required to pay some amounts of Bitcoin. as the right photo. In this photo, the QR code is broken, but the Bitcoin wallet QR code is there. Beyond ClearNet, financial aspects are also seen on darknet, of course. CAP team proactively monitors darknet sites, displaying CSAM. So once we could detect a number of darknet sites permitting the access to archives of CSAM by paying Bitcoins. So since a person cannot access to the archive without sending Bitcoins, some of those sites could be a scam as well. And in this case, we analyzed Bitcoin addresses of one of those sites and found out that around 10 Bitcoins had been paid between 2015 and 2019. In some cases, sites generated new Bitcoin wallet addresses for every single new user, making our trace very challenging. Finally, I will talk about Face Asia project that I mainly work on. FACE stands for Fight Against Children Exploitation. It's a 3-year project funded by the Korean National Police, aiming to develop law enforcement capacity in Asia region to combat online child sexual exploitation. And it consists of 3 components, which are online analysis and operational support, victim identification, and capacity building. So in this project, we have sent 184 referrals to 13 Asian countries in this year only. There's 2 ways of sending referral. If the receiving countries is not connected to the ICSA system, then it goes through the NCB to specialized unit. If the receiving country is connected already, then we can directly send referral to the specialized unit, which is way faster and convenient. To make you better understand, a referral means kind of intelligence report about the child sexual abuse material we analyzed. So in this slide, I actually counted all the referrals in each country in Excel to see the statistics, and it also included ASEAN Upper member countries such as Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. And we have received answers from countries for 57 referrals, but 127 referrals remained silent. So that means we haven't received any feedback or update about these referrals we sent. And some of them even had GPS information, so pointing to a specific location in the receiving country. So why I put this slide is that I would like to reiterate your active participation is very much needed, because without your feedback or response, the referrals we sent are just meaningless. And this is not about just catching a thief. This is about saving children from child sexual abuse. And as a part of the project, we organized the Victim Identification Task Force Asia in July this year. And 11 Asian Pacific countries took part in, and participants analyzed more than 200 series that are believed to happen in Asia or showing Asian victims. It led to the identification of 130 abuse locations, and then after the BIDTF, intelligence packages were sent to the relevant member countries for further investigation. And this task force is actually also a good opportunity to revisit ongoing cases. For example, CSAM appearing to take place in India was uploaded to ICSA, and reporter was sent to India, and the series was revisited during the BIDTF by Indian participants. And Indian police took action, making 1 arrest and identifying 27 victims, which is very great. And I'm happy to inform you that another BIDTF Asia is upcoming very soon in December. So the invitation letter has been sent already to Asian NCBs, and we are still waiting for nominations. So please let your colleagues working in this area know of this BIDTF and encourage them to take part in it. Online child sexual exploitation is very challenging crime area because it's happening in a cyberspace where borders become meaningless. So because of that, joint efforts across the world is very important. And I believe it's even more important to get Asian countries more involved in and engaged in these global efforts to fight OCSE because like more people live inside this circle than outside it, they say. So I wanted to deliver a message to ASEAN Apol member countries that your engagement is so crucial. So I'm reaching to the end of my presentation. And please don't hesitate to contact me. Either this my personal official email address or my team address here. If you have anything related to saving children from sexual abuse, or if you need any consultation or discussion regarding this. And I also strongly recommend you contact us when you need an international coordination with other countries or foreign internet service providers in this crime area. So, do you have any questions from on-site or offline? I don't see any questions on the chat room. Is there any comments or questions from the floor? I guess it's not, but if you come up with anything, you can just email me anytime, and I will stop using share function. How can I? Okay. Okay. I appreciate the organizer and the attendees for paying attention to my presentation. And I hope the rest of your stay in Korea is very pleasant and full of enjoyment. Nice meeting you. And organizer, can I?
Thank you, Mr. Jung Ki-yu and Ms. Dara Park, for your wonderful presentations. And thank you very much, our online audience and our offline audience, for your active participation. This concludes the first Korea-ASEAN International Crime Capacity Building Program. And thank you all again for your participation. For our ending credit, we will be playing a clip provided by the ASEANapol Secretariat. And once again, thank you all for your participation, and thank you very much.
Together, we keep this region safe.